Welcome to Power Charting. My name is Bruce Frazier. I'm your host. And today we have a program that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to spend a few minutes on explaining the background for the motivation that I have for campaigning stocks. And it starts with Richard D. Wyckoff and Jesse Livermore. And they were peers running their operations at the same time back in the early 20th century. They knew each other. Richard D. Wyckoff was one of the few people that was allowed into Jesse Livermore's inner sanctum, his trading office, and where Richard Wyckoff was able to observe Jesse Livermore's trading. And they were peers in that they were in some of the same social circles, both in New York and in Florida, etc. And so I believe that there are some influences in Richard D. Wyckoff's methodology that are related to his experiences with Jesse Livermore. Now, there's a great book that was written by Edwin Lefebvre called Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, and it wouldn't surprise me if many of you have read it. I've read it many times. I have a number of copies of the book, which I tend to maul. It looks like a crime scene where I just mark it up and put notes and references and indexes and everything else. And Reminiscences is a coming of age story for a trader. And this is the experience of a young man who really wants to and has the personal mission to become a great trader. And this is the story of his life. Goes from the bucket shops to Wall Street and finds it very difficult to be able to consistently make money in his trading operations. And so there are things that happen along the way that give him clues about where he needs to go with his methodology, which will allow him to be able to become a great trader. And one of those is being in a Wall Street brokerage firm boardroom. And this is where the traders would hang out and watch the quotes being put up on the chalkboard. So, or watch the tape when the tape became available. And there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Partridge, and they had a nickname for him, Old Turkey. Older gentleman who'd been around a long time. People didn't know much about him, but they would go talk to him and get clues about his style. Well, Mr. Partridge was a campaign trader. He would find good stocks, great stocks that he could buy and hold for the duration of a bull market move. And in this case, Larry Livingston, the subject of Reminiscences, who's allegedly Jesse Livermore, would talk to people that knew Mr. Partridge, and he would talk to him himself, I'm sure, and learn that he would hold stocks for as long as they were in their bull trends, which would be often years. And so there's some great little vignettes about Mr. Partridge, but this was an important maturation point for Mr. Livermore, Mr. Livingston, in that he began to understand that the big profits were in the really big moves. And so this is what campaign trading is all about. And so today, as an introduction, and we're not going to cover a whole lot of ground initially, but we're going to keep at this. And this is something that I think that the Wyckoff method is ideally suited to, which I hope I can prove to you, but that very few people do. As a matter of fact, I think that campaign trading is a very rare thing. Not that there aren't some great campaign traders out there, but campaign trading itself as a methodology is, I think, somewhat rare. we're going to have a discussion about campaign trading in contrast to swing trading. Most Wyckofians I would describe as being swing traders, which is a good thing. It's a great methodology for that, and I know many people that do it very successfully. Swing trading we think of as being moves in stocks or in indexes that go, anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months, maybe longer, maybe 6 months. And campaign trading is a style of investing that can go on for months to years, typically years. And we will go into that a little deeper. Part of this is understanding the investment cycle, which we've talked about. I'm going to put up a chart in a minute, that we trade in concert with the rising and the falling trends of the investment cycle or the business cycle, and which we know is related. We're going to look at some campaign case studies, and we're going to look at some campaign candidates. Okay, but first, an announcement. We have just had our May 1st free webinar, the Wyckoff Market Discussions, where our investment community, our Wyckoff community, comes together on Wednesday afternoons, has a wonderful discussion, Roman Bogomazov and myself, with our attendees about the current state of the markets, which is a wonderful session. We have made an offer, and this offer, we're going to put a line through that, is that we're going to offer a 3 for 30 special, which is that you get to attend 3 of our Wyckoff market discussions for $30 to see what this is all about. So this is I think, a very cool experience. It's a lot of fun. We all have a great time together. I think everybody really looks forward to Wednesday afternoons. And so we would like you to be able to have the experience of being part of this community, learning more about it, finding it to be irreplaceable. And so come join us for 3 weeks, 3 sessions, and just discover what we're about for a $30, minor $30 charge. Okay, go to Wyckoff Analytics at the address below, or email Wyckoff Associates at Gmail, and you can sign up for this. And it starts immediately with the next week's episode. Okay, now here we can see that this is Dr. Prudence adoption diffusion model. Typically, we think of this as being the business cycle, and this is the stock market cycle superimposed on that. And the whole purpose of campaign trading is to identify when accumulation has been completed and we're in markup, and the markup that goes with a business advance that can go on for a long, long time. So here we can see that our mission is to, as campaign traders, is to participate in this uptrend for the duration. And Wyckoff methodology tools are ideal for this, for identifying the beginning of these uptrends, and then also keeping us on them until distribution sets in and the uptrend is over. And so this is a difficult thing to do because this is trend trading. Trading trends is a very difficult thing. The reason that the story and reminiscences about Mr. Partridge is so important is because it's very difficult for active traders to be able to sit on their hands. And there's a quote in Reminiscences, "It wasn't my thinking that made me all my money, it was my sitting." And so this is the area, the time, the duration of the cycle where we want to get on good trends and just sit on them. And there's all these temptations to get off the trends, which is all expressed in Reminiscences. But we want to have systems and methods and approaches that can keep us sitting on our hands and keep us from doing the things that are going to take us out of these robust uptrends. We've looked at these schematics over and over again, and here you can see that we have these beautiful accumulations, and these accumulations, which we use to get point and figure count objectives, are 2 very important aspects of campaign trading, and we will see more about that in a minute. but this is the area that we would look for accumulation to complete. This shows us that the composite operator, who is the ultimate campaign trader, is in long and holding large positions of stock that they do not intend to sell till the cycle is over, the advance is over, and then their campaign is over. We want to be in the same campaigns that they are. Here is an example, I'm going to show you one in a minute, of an uptrending market that goes into a reaccumulation. Well, get this, sometimes we have IPOs. IPOs will come out and they will go up for a period of time, and then they will stall and consolidate into an accumulation area before they begin their serious uptrend. I'll show you an example of one of those. Here is Micron, and Micron is a beautiful cyclical trading stock that at the time in 2015, 2016 was in a accumulation zone. So you can see this is a beautiful accumulation. You can go look at this under phase analysis, 2 case studies back in August of 2016, but you can see here there's a very methodical accumulation forming throughout here, and this accumulation resolves itself into a jump out of the accumulation area, a backup, and then an important uptrend. And so here is an example of a candidate that we would want to identify. We see a very big base, and we recognize this new uptrend, and you can see there are numerous places to get on the trend, and there are places in the uptrend to get on. Well, this is a campaign candidate, and ultimately Micron went over $60. And so at the time we picked this up, it had just come out of its accumulation area, wrote a blog on it, and now then it went into its uptrend. Well, it resolved itself into a more than a $60 price target before it turned, and now it's in a cyclic downtrend, which may produce another opportunity to buy Micron out in the future. I don't think we're there yet, but I want to show you this as an example of the accumulation. Now, 2 important things to keep in mind is that we will see a downtrend, and a downtrending trend channel, which we just talked about in the prior episode, is an area or a stride that needs to be broken. So the downtrend was broken here, and then it came back down and tested here at the LPS, then producing a new uptrend. So you can see the rising stride of the market. This is when a campaign becomes really put into place and very valuable to us as campaign traders. We get on this trend and we're on it for months to years. We're going to sit on our hands and we're going to let this advance go as long as possible until the uptrend is exhausted. Here is another case study. This is another real-time case study like Micron was, wrote a blog on it in 2016 on Albemarle. Maybe it's Albemarle, but chemical company. And you can see in both of these blogs, you can see this accumulation forming. It's being labeled in both of these charts, and what we did is we created segments that are counted for point and figure purposes. And our mission was, because we could see that this accumulation was just being completed, going into an uptrend, this is a campaign candidate. So we're excited about this. And so we picked up on this stock back when it was in the mid 60s. Okay, so we see this big point and figure count that is developed. And so we take it a primary objective, and we have 86.91 for the first segment. We add a second segment, we get to 110, 115. And so now we have an important a price potential, price objective that is formed by our point and figure count. Well, point and figure counts are a very important part of campaign trading. And so the value of point and figure, and our job is to see those, mark them on the charts, and then recognize that somewhere into this area is going to be where we would expect our campaign candidate to go before it either pauses for a reaccumulation or concludes its campaign advance and turns down. And so here we can see that the point figure gives us the objective, which we are going to keep focused on, with the idea that we're going to be aware of having trailing stops that will take us out of the position if the candidate, and it does happen, stops its campaign prematurely and goes down. We're not going to let a profit turn into a loss, but we're going to keep our stops wide. We're going to give the stock room to move. Okay, so here is this is the accumulation area that we just talked about. We can see our counts, 86.91. This is very close. This is the 86 line, is right where the reaccumulation formed for the next move up, which occurred later. And then we can see this 110 to 115 target zone and the reaccumulation area counted up to 120, 125. Well, these objectives are important to us as potential for campaign purposes. Albemarle ultimately went to the area of 140. So it even blew past our counts that we had developed. But the point of the counts is to give us an idea how much fuel's in the tank. It's not an end all and be all, and the fact that it went over 125 is wonderful. And so it was a terrific campaign example that we were able to document and follow in real time in the Wyckoff power charting blog. Okay, so now here's one that's more recent. This one's in motion right now, and you can see this is Wynn Resorts, and accumulation is formed. Here we have a spring and a test, a strong upward move, which is a minor sign of strength, LPS, a major sign of strength, and then a backup. So now we're up and out of the accumulation area. So we have the potential for a count of sorts that we can look to for a campaign. And this uptrend, we can see that the downtrend has been broken at the LPS. An important thing to happen is that the downtrend concludes and then it comes out. So the spring would be the first place that would be a potential initiation point for a trade. LPS is the second, another LPS is the third. And so these are the areas, and then this is like a backup where it just stalls and then keeps going. And so we now want to look at the potential for the point figure. Oh, this is interesting. This is in the blog, so please feel free to go back and look at this. Look at the correlation between the FXI China large cap and the Wynn chart, and you can see the correlation is there. Wynn is more volatile. It's the blue line. So it tends to follow the FXI because they have a large exposure to the Macau gaming area at Wynn. And so you can see here that the relative strength is now up on FXI. So we have an uptrend in large cap China and we have an uptrend in Wynn. They are moving together, new uptrend, and look at the cyclic turn. Could very well be that we have a campaign developing in China large cap at this time. Looks very good. And look at these big persistent trends, both in China large cap and Wynn. This is exactly what we're after. Look at this beautiful accumulation area right here, and then a big uptrend. Well, we want to campaign that one right to there. Okay, now what's the potential? Wynn had a really interesting distribution, and the distribution, after being in that big glorious uptrend and having a climax, big dramatic climax, went into a distribution. The distribution counted down to 96 to 78 with a midpoint of 87, got right into the range of this count, and then look what it did. It formed an accumulation type structure. So we are hopeful here that we have a new campaign condition in place for Wynn, and it's acting as though it wants to start an important or continue an important uptrend, which is just resolved out of the accumulation area. And look at the count, 198, 218, takes us back to the prior highs. Potentially this count could become bigger, and maybe the count becomes larger, or we get a reaccumulation count in the future here that counts to higher prices. And so we'll be watching for that. And moving on. Now, we understand that not all campaign candidates work out, and that we are looking for the characteristics that are consistent with all campaign candidates, recognizing that not all candidates are going to become great campaign stocks. Some are aborted, they fail in the mid stages, sometimes they don't get out of their accumulation area, etc. And so risk management is an important part of this, and we'll get a lot more into risk management as we go. Here, from here on, I'm going to show you examples of candidates that appear to be completing or completed and are starting their important uptrends, as we just saw with Wynn. Here's CF Industries, which has a base count of that takes it from the $24 count line up to a count of $74.50, $79.50. And it's already had its first leg up. Oftentimes, we don't see campaign candidates until they've had their initial leg up. And this is the beauty of formalizing our methodology for campaigning around the horizontal point and figure counting as an example, because notice this, CF Industries is now in what appears to be a reaccumulation type structure. And the reaccumulation now counts up to and confirms the count that took place in the accumulation area. And so reaccumulation matches accumulation area. This often is the point where the uptrend is ready to go again. We've had a good bullish wall here that's developed with 6 X's in it. It's up to the resistance area. It may have to do some more work, but we are going to be watching CF Industries closely for its ability to resolve out of this reaccumulation area and begin a markup to that 78.81 area. And it's possible the CF may have a larger accumulation or reaccumulation count that could be taken at a later point, and we will watch closely for that. So here's an example of one that's in reaccumulation. And so then here is FMC Corp. Interesting, it had an accumulation area in 2015 to 17 that did a beautiful job of counting right up to the top of the first leg of the markup. And so we can see that's at $84. And the reaccumulation appears to be forming and resolving itself out of the resistance area here. And this is encouraging because we can see that FMC is now trying to push up and has a count in the first segment here, the green segment, that takes it up to 111, 125. And there's further count. You can see here there's 33 columns that counts in the second segment and 41 in the third. So there could be much further to go in FMC over time, and we're just now watching to get to the completion of the first segment. You are encouraged to do the calculations and flag FMC for the other 2 segments that are here. So this is a very interesting $79 stock that has the potential, the fuel to go higher. And so this certainly appears to be a campaign candidate. Here is Workday, which is a blog that was recently written. And here you can see this is interesting because it goes back to that schematic that we had of reaccumulation. And so in the reaccumulation schematic, we could see that it just went up and it rallied up into a buying climax and then reaccumulated for another move. And this is an IPO back in 2012. The IPO had an initial run up and then it stalled. And this is where the CO types, composite operator types, were building their very large positions, was in this big trading range that occurred from the beginning of 2014 through 2017, 2018. So in the case of Workday, we can see here that it has already resolved itself out of this reaccumulation area and is above the resistance that we have across here, jumped up, backed up, it's in an uptrend. This looks very constructive, but we want to, again, consult our point and figure work. Here is the reaccumulation area that we just talked about down here. And we have two counts. The first count goes 173, 191. We have a reaccumulation count that formed across here. And this reaccumulation count goes 188, 205. And so we are in the area of confirming at least the initial segment of Workday here, but we do have a larger count for higher prices that goes 283, 316. So this appears to be a campaign that continues to have potential. It's thrown over the top of its trend channel, which is very important to us, and we would expect that it will spend time consolidating at these point and figure counts, building cause for the next potential leg up, 283, 316. And so this is a very interesting stock, which near term might be in an overbought condition, need to pause, need to rest, but there's more potential ahead. We want to keep a very close eye on Workday. Okay, so now Twitter is interesting as a future candidate because we can see here that there is an accumulation area in Twitter after a climactic decline into the end of 2015. And so here we can see that this count goes across with the low of $14. I'm just going to tell you what this count is. This count goes up to the 63 to $65 area, and this count here takes it up to 78 to 81. So these two counts both have higher prices in them, and this is about a $40 price level. And I would contend that this has a much bigger count for much higher prices out in the future. You can see here that I have marked the point and figure so that you can see Twitter is up and out of its accumulation area, formed a reaccumulation just above the accumulation area, and then I flagged these counts for you so that you can see their potential and the potential for larger accumulation out in the future. But we'll take it a step at a time and recognize that this appears to be an early uptrend. I have more for you on the subject of campaigning, and we are going to have this discussion in the Market Watchers Live Thursday program, May 2nd, which at the time that you are watching this will already be on demand and available on YouTube. So to see more examples of what we've talked about today, go to the Market Watchers Live from May 2nd. And we'll have some additional examples for you there. And we will continue this discussion in the future. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next time.